All right, so there's a lot of information out there about how people can progress a novice linear progression past uh, the early novice phase and into intermediate training, but a lot of it's not really practical. There's no examples given. It's just kind of general information about when you should change to this or that. And so I'm going to walk you through a program for a young man that I've been coaching now since December. With some kind of good examples of how this should actually work and what it actually looks like, and the types of changes that you can make to keep progress going instead of just trying to reset your 3 sets of 5 or whatever over and over and over again and never really make much progress. So hopefully this video will be helpful for you guys who aren't really sure and who are looking for more in-depth information on this stuff. The first week, we kind of just tested out where this guy was, right? He's 17 years old. He was weighing 157 pounds. And so the first day he comes in, we just kind of gauge where he's at. You don't really want to have like too much weight on the bar the first day because then everything's just going to kind of fall apart. You won't have anywhere to progress. So it's always better to start off at a weight that's moderately challenging with an easy path forward to adding weight to the bar. So his first session, he came in on a Friday. He squatted 3 sets of 5 at 75 pounds. He pressed 3 sets of 5 at 32 pounds. And he deadlifted a set of 5 at 115 pounds. And we just ran the typical novice linear progression for quite a while after that. And you can see that first week he was in consistently training Monday, Wednesday, Friday. He's just adding weight to everything. All his weight's looking good. All his movements are looking good. And we're tracking his weight addition to his body over the course of the time that he's doing this stuff. So these first couple weeks, everything's moving pretty good. By week 3, he's got the technique down sufficiently enough that we can start making like jumps where appropriate to get the weight to go up. So here you can see he did 115, 125, 130. He was doing ascending sets on his squat to try to make it a little bit more challenging without overloading him. He missed a week. Or he missed a day. That Friday, he missed his workout for whatever reason. So the next day that he came in, we didn't take weight off the bar. We waited till Monday. We went up on everything anyways. He went up on his press. He went up on his deadlift. He went up on his squat, all that good stuff. And it's still going up. It's still going up. He's gaining still a little bit of weight, not as much as we would like to see, but it's enough to kind of keep him moving along. By week 4, his press is starting to get hard enough that we added a belt. And then the weight's still going up. Weight's still going up. Still using a belt in the press, but everything else is looking pretty good. And then by week 5, he's squatting. He's got a belt on for his squat. He's still progressing his bench press, and he's belting his deadlift. On the next page, this is like another 6 weeks of training here. We can see that his press has started to slow down. It's obviously getting heavy enough. He's not doing sets of 5 anymore. And it seemed to me that it was a light enough weight that he probably should still be doing sets of 5. But again, he's not gaining as much weight as he needs to. He's gained like 5 pounds in the course of the 2 months or whatever that he's been training. So instead, we slowed him down to 2.5 pound jumps, and we changed him to triples on his press, and we just kept that going. Nothing else changed. Nothing else needed to change. His bench is still 3 sets of 5. His deadlift by the middle of the week is still a set of 5. But he was losing his lower back, so we decided to change him to 2 triples, and we progressed his deadlift that way. Again, the squat's still the same. The press is 5 triples, and then the deadlift is just 1 triple for whatever reason this day at the same weight as the last time that he did it, just to see how his low back was feeling. He might have been sore or something still, and then we just keep going. At this point, we decided that the problem wasn't necessarily that he wasn't gaining enough weight, but he probably wasn't eating enough carbs. So we decided to shift the deadlift to the beginning of the workout, and we started making him deadlift before everything else. This is not a bad decision. It's not a super harmful thing to do. Typically, you want to do your squat first because the squat is more technically demanding than the deadlift. But if by the time you're done squatting, you're not gaining enough weight to facilitate this addition to the bar every time that you lift, then sometimes it's beneficial for the sake of not being exhausted by the time you get to your deadlift, that you can keep more technical proficiency with your lifts, to just do your deadlift first. And so that's what we had him do. He did 2 triples with his deadlift at 200 pounds, and then he did his squat last. And then everything's still going up. He's still adding weight to his squat every day. He's still adding weight to his deadlift every single day, but he's doing 2 triples, and his press still going up by 2.5 pounds. His bench is still going up by 5 pounds. The next week after that, looks like nothing has changed, but his deadlift is obviously getting demanding. We started flipping a hand in his deadlift that last week, so we decided to slow his deadlift down a little bit and give him a power clean. So by this week, what is this week, like 9 or 10 or something like that, he's starting to power clean now. He's still adding weight to his squat, but we decided, because we didn't want his deadlift to get too far behind his squat, that we were artificially just going to give him a light day on his squat. So the middle of the week is now a light day for his squat, and everything else is still progressing while he alternates his power clean and his deadlift, and everything is still progressing pretty good. By this week, he's learned enough technical proficiency with the power clean that we start making some jumps on that. We start going up. The squat is starting to get pretty hard. So we slowed that down. We took away that light day, or we kept that light day in the middle of the week. And now we've given him top sets and backs offs, because his back is rounding in the squat, and too much work in the squat. Again, if he's deadlifting first, he's going to be tired by the time he gets to his squat, and vice versa. So we decided to give him a top set and some back offs. And the back offs, we typically do like, 15 to 20 pounds lighter. It all scales kind of relative, but you want to be like 10% less load on the bar for your back off sets than you do your top sets. By this week, things are slowing down even more with his press. His press is getting pretty challenging. So he didn't get everything that he needed to do. He missed that Wednesday. And so we didn't really make a whole lot of changes. The bench just had to wait a little bit. We don't want the press to drop off precipitously. So we're going to kind of keep that going, keep it on track with where it should be. But at this point, we started adding rack pull. So for whatever reason, that deadlift 225, for some reason, was looking hard enough that we decided, well, we're going to add a rack pull, and we're going to give him some hard rack pulls so that he can train his back at a heavier weight and keep it set. He wasn't able to do a set of 5. This is not terribly uncommon that people will have a hard time breaking the bar off the pins when they're deadlift or rack pulling, because it's just a heavy load from like a dead stop position at a higher weight. They're at a higher range of motion. They're not accustomed to that. So he did 2 triples. And then the next time that he came in, we rack pulled again, but we did the same weight for a set of 5. And this is a pretty common way to do this. Also, he decided that he wanted to have bigger arms. So we decided we were going to throw a little bit of extra back work in, as well as like some arm work that he wanted. So we gave him some chin-ups. With the chin-ups, you just pretty much do as many as you can. But you can see that the press and the bench are still pretty much on track. We reset the press a little bit. We took it back down because it all kind of fell apart here. It was probably a technical issue. He was probably having a hard time with the timing of the press or something to that effect, which is not uncommon. And in that case, you want to take the weight down a little bit, work on the technique, and then slowly build it back up. So now we're into month 3, going on month 4, and you can tell that things are getting a little bit more complicated. He's got more stuff going on. He's also missing a couple more days, and he's added a decent amount to his body weight. It's not as much as we would like to see, but he's gone from 157 to 171 in a matter of 3 months. That's actually pretty decent for like a 17-year-old boy. Most of the time, they don't gain any weight at all, but we would always like to see it be a little bit more, because he would get a lot more out of this progression. But obviously things are getting challenging and it's slowing down a little bit. He's still doing a top set and back offs on his squat. He still has a light day in the middle of the week for his squat, but we're going to keep that addition of weight twice a week on the squat. The bench has slowed down. He's now doing 5 triples on the bench, and he's still adding 5 pounds per workout to that. And the press had been reset, and that's not an uncommon thing to do. Sometimes that's what you have to do, because the technical proficiency of the press was lacking. It had to go back down, fix issues, so you can continue to build it back up. The deadlift, we decided that we're not going to alternate that with power cleans necessarily anymore, but we're going to add some stuff in to accommodate his other goals. Again, he wanted to have bigger arms, so we added some rows in that was going to help him learn how to keep his upper back tight. But he's deadlifting now once a week in the middle of the week, and that changed right here. So he had a a reset, essentially, if you will, on his deadlift, where he was still struggling at like 225. So we took it back down and progressed him back up from set to 5 to learn how to set his back. And that got us to 195 for a set of 5, and it looked good. Good enough that we were decided that we're going to have him do belt-free deadlifts, because sometimes the belt will distract you from feeling that contraction on your low back. And most young men kind of struggle with this anyways, but taking away the belt, if you can be a helpful way to kind of learn how to feel that contraction a little bit better. When we transitioned him to a deadlift once a week, 2 sets of 3 is not going to be enough anymore. So we did ascending triples for 3 sets of 3, starting at 195 and just kind of working up. And we did that for a couple weeks. Made another jump the next week, went 205, 210, 210. And then we finally settled at 215 for 3 triples, and he's been riding that out for a little while. It's working pretty good. The bench slowed down again. He kind of hit a wall with that, and that's okay. That's when you kind of reassess. We tried having him do 2 top triples with that, and then some back offs on that. Clearly, it was becoming a challenge for him, but we changed that to 2.5 pound jumps. We slowed that down, that weight addition, and then we ultimately changed him to singles. With the bench or with the press, when you're doing singles, you got to do a lot of them. So we start with 7 to give us some room to grow. Eventually, this will be like just 3 singles. Maybe in a couple weeks, he can only do 6, and then 5, and then 4, and then 3. We want to keep that stress as high as we can. We don't want to dump it immediately by getting rid of a bunch of reps. Again, he's still doing the light squat. We added some push-ups because it's another variation to get him what he wants with his arms. And we've added curls. So he's going to do curls. He's going to do ascending sets of curls, but that's not every workout. So he'll do 3 sets of 5, and then 4 sets of 5, and then 5 sets of 5, and then add weight and start that over again. So 3 sets of 5, 4 sets of 5, and then 5 sets of 5, and then add weight. And this is a pretty good way to progress curls with young guys. And that brings us to where we are now with this program. In this 4th month or whatever of training, he's now at 173 pounds. We're finding his box squat height. We're finding his squat rack and pins. He's squatting in the rack now instead of outside of the rack because it's heavy enough. And if he's lifting with just one person coaching him, then it's not safe. So he needs to be in the rack. But the bench now has a heavy day and a light day. 7 singles by themselves is not going to be enough for a very long period of time. If you were to try to do that every single workout, it'd fall apart. Sometimes it's best to add the volume in immediately, so we gave him a light day, and that gives us more wiggle room in the program to kind of move things around. So where he's at now is the press is slowed down. He got to 5 triples at 90 because we did that reset, and he got 3, 3, 3, 3, and then 1, and then 1. It slowed down. His deadlift is back to PRing, which is good. His press is back to PRing, which is good, but it is hard, and he's only pressing once a week, so we can accommodate this press volume or this bench volume and this bench heavy day. His barbell rows have transitioned into Pendlay rows, and he's still doing the curls and making progress with the curls. But at this point, we decided, okay, the press needs more work. So what do? We have all this stuff going on every single day. We don't want to slow the squat down. He's squatting 250 plus pounds now. That's great. We don't want to take that away. But we can get rid of that light squat day. At this point, he had a box squat. But we're getting rid of the box squat, and we're going to add some pin work in. So he's going to increase the stress in his press by adding a pin press. Typically, I like to do that starting off with like 3 triples, nothing too crazy. But that caused us to have to move the press day, which was his only press day, and it was heavy, to the beginning of the week. And this is going to leave us room with the program for the squat later on when this inevitably stalls out and slows down to where he can only add weight once a week. We'll ultimately end up making this like probably be his light day, and then this will probably be like his heavy day for his squat, still deadlifting heavy in the middle of the week. And then he'll have his heavy overhead press with a pin press. His volume day on the bench has been moved to Wednesday, and his heavy day on the bench press is not going to change. It's going to stay right there because that's going to be the best thing for him. But we're adding the Pendlay rows instead of the barbell rows because it's going to kind of help him with the progression. We need to learn how to squeeze his back. You need to learn how to move the barbell. Now we're going to lower it to the floor and add some weight. hopefully this example has kind of been helpful for you guys. You can kind of see how things unfold over time, that you don't change everything at once when you run into one problem. You reset where you have to, you progress where you can, and you go one step at a time. And so you can kind of use this as a better idea of what it looks like, how a whole program should unfold over time. And again, we're leaving ourselves room to make these changes as they need to happen. It may be next week that something here needs to change. It may be 2 or 3 weeks out. You don't know, but we're leaving ourselves room, right? And so eventually this deadlift is going to be hard. He's not going to be able to do 3 triples anymore, which means that something is going to have to be moved around so that we can accommodate an extra day of pulling. And that's where we have room for these pendlay rows to kind of, phase out. Eventually, maybe if this is the volume squat day and this is the heavy squat day, then we're not going to want that heavy deadlift day right here, because we're just going to revert back to the problem that we had before, where by the time he's done with the heavy squat and he's doing heavy presses and he gets to his heavy deadlift, he's going to be exhausted. He's not going to be able to keep his back tight, but he needs to do extra pulling, right? So we'll have the volume squat day, which is going to be lighter than the heavy squat day. We'll probably put that heavy deadlift day right here and have like a lighter deadlift day right here. And then this will be exchanged with something else. It's hard to know. Maybe an extra day of pressing, or, we could move things around. But you have to leave yourself room as things unfold over time to make these changes as you need to. Because otherwise you're going to say, oh, well, crap, now I have to change the entire program to add or exchange one thing. You want to make those movements and those changes to the program slowly over time and kind of anticipate them. And if you have a good coach watching you, what you're doing, then they should be able to tell in 2 or 3 weeks, we're probably going to need to move something. So we need to plan for that now. But that can be hard to do if you don't have experience with this sort of thing and with how to program and change programs over time. But this is what a progression should look like. This is progression. We're not starting all over all the time. We start over on the things that we need to, but not completely. We take the weight down a little bit. We tweak things. We relearn things. We reteach things. And then we get that back into gear with the rest of the program while it all progresses. So I hope this has been helpful. And if you guys have any questions, leave a comment, or you can always email the gym.